Hi church, happy Friday and welcome to today's digital devotion. So October 7th was Desmond Tutu's birthday, and so we wanted to talk a little bit about the man and his legacy and how impactful he's been in our world. So for those of you who aren't familiar, he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984 for his leadership during the apartheid movement in South Africa, and he was also elected the first Black Archbishop of Cape Town, the head of the Anglican Church in South Africa, and in 1995, President Nelson Mandela appointed Tutu to lead the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, which was an investigation committee about apartheid-era human rights abuses. So Jacob and I visited the Apartheid Museum in South Africa when we were there on sabbatical last summer and found it to be the most just fascinating, impactful, moving, painful, shocking museum full of just really in-depth descriptions and educational pieces about that time in South Africa. It's the kind of stuff that you wouldn't believe, except coming from the United States of America. We know this stuff can really happen. And so we just wanted to lift up Desmond Tutu and talk about some of the things he said and how those speak to us today in our world. And one of the things was, he has this amazing quote. He said, "How does peace come? Peace doesn't come because allies agree. Allies are allies. They already agree. Peace comes when you talk to the person you most hate. And that's where the courage of a leader comes." And we both just felt like that speaks so much to today, our political climate, and how it's so easy. Jacob preached this past Sunday, for those of you who were there, on how easy it is to be in our echo chambers and surround ourselves with people who think like us and tell us what we want to hear, and we can all just agree with each other. And that feels good for a while, but where change really happens are when we have those tough conversations with people who don't agree with us, who think differently, and not that we're always able to change each other's minds, but that we're able to sit down together and have honest conversations and try to figure out where the other person's at and where they're coming from.
Yeah, Desmond Tutu was such an incredible human being, and he was always full of joy, and at the same time, he had that joy because he knew who he was, he knew what was important in his life, he knew what was important in his work, and even in that joy, he never shied away from the hard conversations, the hard truth.
Yeah.
He held people accountable in that truth and reconciliation moment. And it was kind of the best picture that I think we've seen in human history of both the judgment of God and the grace of God. That there was accountability, there was judgment, but for anyone willing to say, I committed atrocities, I committed horrors, then the Truth and Reconciliation Committee met them with forgiveness and grace and an opportunity to create a new South Africa. And so if you study this period, if you study the work of the Truth and Reconciliation period, it truly was kind of this amazing picture of both accountability and judgment and grace and mercy. Which is what we see in Scripture. And that quotation you shared with us from Desmond Tutu is exactly what Jesus says when he says, pray for your enemies, love your enemies. That is such hard work. And yet that is the work of the church. The church is always about, our faith is always about taking it one step further towards creating that peaceable kingdom, which can only come about if we're willing to sit down with people. And we know that in this political climate, it is not easy, because I think the tension within us is we don't want to legitimize racism. We don't want to legitimize sexism. We don't want to legitimize genocide. And so how could we ever sit down with someone whose core beliefs we understand to be racist, right? The tension is there. And yet we have to believe that there is the possibility of change, of redemption, no matter how hard it seems. And that burden shouldn't be on just one group of people. That burden has to be shared by all of humanity. And I think that burden has to be historically, that burden gets taken on by people of faith.
And I thought the name of the committee was so appropriate, the Truth and Reconciliation, because it really starts with the truth, telling the truth, accepting the truth, acknowledging the truth, and only then can reconciliation happen. And so I feel like that work is a multi-step process that we're all doing and being called to do in our lives in many different contexts of many
Yeah.
different, issues that are political and social issues right now.
Yeah.
But it starts with the truth.
Yeah, which is hard in the era of truthiness and
Yeah.
alternative facts.
Yeah.
But to be able to just try to sit down with people and say, can we agree that we should respect people's humanity, that people deserve love and compassion? Can we start there? How can we get there? How can we do that together?
Yeah.
And I think we might be surprised
Yeah.
by honest conversations about each other's humanity, what might come from that.
Yeah.
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 If you have time, read some Desmond Tutu, research some Desmond Tutu. You will not be disappointed by Archbishop Tutu's life and work.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. That's it for today. We will see you on Sunday.
See you then.